Hello everyone, and welcome to my 8-player card table. I built this for poker, but you could pretty much play any card game on this table. In this video, I'm going to show you the function, some cool features, plus some optional features that you can add. In the second half of this video, I will also explain all the redstone if you are interested in understanding how to build this. But first, I would like to give a shout out to Tyrant44 for doing most of the heavy lifting. Check out his video on his card table if you would like to see a more simplified version of this table, but keep in mind that his table only seats up to 6 players. So you might be wondering, how is it even possible to play poker in Minecraft? Well, that's with the use of banners. Banners are going to act as the playing cards, which you will be shuffling around in the machine to play. So the way this table works is you play inside the center chest. Cards will be shown here on the very top. Players will be betting their money on the bottom. And then you can have your main pot and your small pot over here. And then this will be used to keep track of the big blind and the small blind. Again, I built this machine for poker, but you could play other games on this table as well. So on this table, the players will sit in these 8 seats over here. The dealer will sit in this chair here. The dealer can deal cards to everybody using this button right here. You're going to notice that everybody will get 2 cards. There's 2, 2, 2. These triggers are fairly spam proof, which means you can push the buttons pretty quickly. 1, 2, 3. And if I check the chest, there's all 3 cards. So when the game is over, players could leave their cards in their seat number and then the dealer could just take them. Or players can also fold and not show their cards to everybody using these shulkers. If I put a bunch of cards into these shulkers, then you'll see them down here. Nobody else will be able to see these cards. When the game is over, the dealer can collect all the cards and they can put them into the shulker. The cards will then shuffle. When they're done shuffling, the sound of a bell will play. If you're not a fan of the auto shuffler and you want to shuffle the cards manually, you can put a lever here and flip the switch. When players go to discard their cards, it's very common that players would accidentally discard items or stacks of things into the shulker, which is why only the dealer will be able to see the discarded cards. Dealing 2 cards to everybody automatically is one of the optional features. If you don't want to deal 2 cards to everybody, then you can just have players stand on these note blocks and they can deal single cards to themselves. If you wanted to deal all players 1 card instead of 2 cards, then you would just change this redstone lamp into a note block. What's also nice about this design is that the seats are toggleable, which means you can flip these levers so that these players will not be dealt any cards. If players fall down the hole and get stuck, there's a ladder block here which allows them to climb back out. It also blocks players from dealing themselves cards if you don't want them to do that. The barrels were placed very deep, which prevents players from looking in other players' barrels. You have to walk very far to be able to look down into someone's barrel, which would be very obvious to everyone else at the table. On top of that, if somebody had to go to the bathroom or is AFK for a second, you can flip this trap door, which prevents someone from looking in their barrel entirely. We're playing card games in Minecraft, so I don't think it's even that serious where people would need to cheat, but in case someone was cheating, there are some preventative measures to stop that from happening. So that's pretty much the whole table. If you guys want to use the table, the world download will be in the description below. I'm also going to leave a Lightmatica file for the build of this table. Moving on to the second half of this video, I'm now going to explain how the redstone works. I've broken it down into these steps so it's really easy to understand. So the first part of this machine is the card storage. The card storage works with these 4 droppers and these hoppers going in a circle. It's really important to only have 4 droppers because of all of the slots. Each dropper has 9 slots and each hopper has 5 slots. Having this many droppers and 5 hoppers leads to 66 empty slots. This works really well for a 52 card deck, but if I added more droppers, there would be too many empty slots, which would eventually break the machine. Even with only 4 droppers and 5 hoppers, I was still running into an issue where these 2 hoppers next to each other would be empty very often, and when you tried to pull a card down, there was nothing to pull. That's because this dropper, this hopper, and this dropper would fill up first, and then these ones would be empty. So to solve that, I'm triggering this dropper and this dropper an extra time with these observers. So when this dropper triggers, it'll send a signal which triggers this one more time. Moving on to the auto shuffler. What this does is it detects cards in this dropper here with this comparator, and then it sends a signal which triggers these 2 observers to face into each other. I can show you an example here. So if I take a bunch of cards and I drop them here, you see they shuffled, this dropper is empty. The cards are back in the system. The part on the backside with the ice block and the note block is just to give a sound cue in case you have your piston noises turned down really low. Moving on to the hopper lock. So with cards shuffling around in a circle, the problem is that they would be falling down into these hoppers if there wasn't something preventing it. So we have to lock all of the hoppers. This step, I just wanted to show you the placement of the torches. It's really important that there's not a hopper directly underneath any of these torches in this block here. If there's any hoppers underneath these torches, then they will be locked and you will not be able to pull items. The next step is the input method. You can really choose to put these wherever you want, but this is the orientation of the table that I wanted to set up. So these observers look into these note blocks. When you trigger the note block, it sends a signal down, which is going to unlock the hoppers momentarily. So if you look at this torch down here, when I push this note block, it flashes that torch for a second, which allows cards to fall down the droppers. This also sends a signal upwards, which triggers the cycling again. So 2 things happen when you hit this note block. It will allow cards to fall down into the hoppers. It also sends a signal on top, which cycles the cards around again. It's important the cards get cycled around again in case there's any empty spots. This next section is the dropper towers. Again, you could kind of put these like one more block out, but I try to keep it sort of compact. This is not the most compact build ever, but I try to make it relatively small. So we already know that these torches will flash, which will drop a card down into the system. When cards come down the path of hoppers, they'll eventually end up in this dropper here. Same thing with all of these droppers. They're going to end up in the very bottom dropper on all of these. The next part is the dropper power system. So when cards end up in that bottom dropper, we need to make sure they go all the way to the top. The dropper power system is probably the most complicated part. I want to give another shout out to Tyrant44 for using this design in their build. Basically what happens is that cards go into the bottom dropper here. The comparator sends a signal into this block, which turns off this hopper and triggers this dropper again. But it also sends a signal into this block, which turns off this torch, which turns on this torch, which turns off this torch. It's a whole chain of things that go up, which powers all the droppers upward. This also has a secondary function, where it sends power into this block, which sends signal down to this redstone, which goes into this repeater, which powers this block. Since this block is directly underneath this hopper, what it does is it prevents cards from overfilling the dropper tower. If it wasn't for this part right here, then the dropper tower would easily break when too many cards overfill it. I can show you an example of this very easily. So right now, if I put a lot of cards into this, you're going to notice that it clears the whole thing out and nothing will get stuck. Everything is clear, all the cards end up on the top. But if I remove this block here, and I do the same thing, now the cards get stuck. That's because we're not locking this hopper here. But because we power this block here, it prevents that from happening by locking this hopper. The most awkward dropper tower to set up was this one in the middle, because on the back side it triggers the same as all the other ones do, and it comes up here and it goes into this hopper and it comes into this dropper, or actually comes into this dropper here, which means I need to trigger this dropper tower again. So this time we use a note block with 2 observers going into this middle one here. We also need to send a signal into this orange block, which powers this orange block, which triggers the bottom one again. On this side, you can see how the comparator sends a signal into the note block, which sends a signal into this redstone, which goes through this block into this repeater, which goes into this block, and finally into that note block right there. The next part is pretty simple. This is the discard shulkers. So basically, players can discard cards into these shulkers, which will go down to this barrel. It does not go into the system yet. Only the dealer can see this barrel. The dealer will then take the cards and put it into this shulker, which will actually put it back into the system. From this point, the table is pretty much done. You could just leave it at this. It's still really compact. It's fully functional. Players can deal themselves cards. Players can fold into this shulker. The dealer can deposit the cards into this shulker and shuffle everything back in. The table is fully functional. The next features are going to be optional. So this next section is how we set up the auto deal. This allows you to deal 2 cards to every player automatically, and the seats are toggleable. You can see how you would push this button here, it would send a signal around, and then it only pulls in if the target blocks are up. So when these levers are not flipped, players will be dealt a card. When the levers are flipped, players will not be dealt a card. Again, if you only want to deal 1 card to all players, then you change these redstone lamps into a note block. Finally, the last section is the system flush. This allows you to pull all of the cards out of the system very quickly. This is really useful so that you don't have to climb all the way downward. If you suspect cheating, then you can check all of the cards at the end to make sure there's only 52 cards. The way this works is with this lever here. If I flick this lever, it's going to trigger all of the dropper towers, and it also powers these blocks here with the torches on them. We know from before, when this torch turns off, the hoppers will pull cards downward, and since we're also triggering the dropper towers, the cards will automatically go to the top. So right now, all of the barrels are empty. If I flip this lever, you're going to see what happens. You can see how all of the dropper towers are flashing with the torches. If I go to the very top, you're going to notice cards going into the barrels and the chest. And to stop it, I just flip this lever. So that's all the functions of the table explained. All of the cards that I've shown you before are able to be made in vanilla Minecraft without any commands. The 9s and the 6s do not look the best. If you want them to look better, you can use commands to make these 6s and these 9s. If you guys need jokers for your game, you can use anything. Just make sure that they have different names so that they don't stack. If there's anything else you think I should add to this table, please let me know. Again, the world file will be in the description of the video, along with a Lightmatica file for the build.